Thank you. Also, if everyone who is not, I would like to mute everyone, and then Moses, you can unmute yourself and we'll go from there, okay?
Thank you.
Here we go. Okay.
All right, here we go. Okay, oops, pardon me. Okay, folks, sorry about that. Committee reports. Do we have Frank Rudloff? Do you have anything on land use, please?
Yeah, strangely enough, really, no. There's nothing really to report on land use outside of what will come up in the course of talking about the Safe Rest Village.
Very good. Makes sense. Makes sense. Corinne Wallace, are you here tonight for transportation?
Hi, yes, I am here. Not a ton to report outside of the Capitol Highway project, which is moving right along. They send updates out about every 2 weeks. So if you want a detailed report of what's happening, we'll post it up on the website, or at least a link to it, or you can get the emails. But the biggest thing that I've seen come up within driving around the project area is that there is new traffic signals were installed at Southwest Multnomah Boulevard and Southwest 40th, right by the post office, to allow for a protected left turn onto Southwest 40th. So that's something that I've heard the community ask for in the past, and that's pretty cool. It was folded into this project. Those won't be activated for several months, but that's something that was something that was somewhat new to me coming through on this project. So I think that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer anything.
Wonderful. Okay, so they've been really tying up traffic along that area, but I'm glad that they added those. Let's see. So Beth, is there anything happening with public safety that you'd like to report? Took you by surprise, didn't I, Beth? I'm sorry. Oh, you're muted. That's why. I bet you. Wait a second.
The person on the telephone who's muted has to hit a *6 to unmute themselves, and then *6 to mute themselves again.
Yeah.
*9 to raise your hand, and *9 to take it down again. *6 to unmute.
Can you see her name there? Oh,
Okay, I'm unmuted. Beth here. No, I don't have really a new report, but just a reminder to keep your car doors locked because we've had a rash of car break-ins in the neighborhood. And don't leave anything of value in your car. Don't leave anything in your car that people can see and be tempted to break in. That seems to be our main problem in the neighborhood.
crimes of
That's all.
opportunity. Crimes of opportunity, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good. Well, thank you,
They're
Beth.
Okay.
Okay.
So should I mute myself again?
Oh, you're welcome to, if you wish.
Okay.
How do you repeat the process? Do you just repeat the process if you're on the phone, Will?
Yep, *6.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. All righty here. Let me pull up my, make sure I'm on the right part here. Oh, equity, goodness. Will?
Sure. I'll be brief. I'll even show my face here. In equity, we've been working with Southwest Equity Committee Coalition on this, particularly the West Portland Town Center project, which, and the aim of that committee at this point, a coalition, is to make sure that the West Portland Town Center, as it develops, will be not unfairly gentrified. They'll preserve the people who are living there already that can't afford the fancy apartments and so on. And it's a real equity issue for us. But there's another thing I'm particularly proud of. Our last meeting, we voted unanimously for an equity statement. I won't read it to you, but the basic purpose of it is to bring diversity, equity, and inclusion as natural parts of being a neighborhood. And their pledge is to promote a open, fair, welcoming, and safe neighborhood. And somebody said, well, what do you mean? Who's that for? Is it safe for who? And the answer is everybody. It's open to everybody, fair to everybody, welcoming to everybody, and safe for everybody. And that's the important thing for me to bring out is basically equity is for everybody, not just the people who are particularly impacted by it.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for that. Let's keep on keeping on here. We are at the point, I appreciate the brevity very much for right on time. Right now, let's go to our section of the agenda where we're introduce Multnomah County Commissioner Sharon Myron. And let me make sure that, yeah, I've got,
He is here.
wonderful. Okay, and I have some information. They're sharing with me some information I want to be able to share with the folks during the talk.
You're
But
sharing with Sharon? Yes.
yes, is Sharon available? Is she on the? Do you see her
She's
there?
on the
Yes, I'm
Oh,
here.
good. And a voice. Okay.
I have a voice and a face. I see my face anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Um,
Welcome.
Hi.
Sharon.
Good to see you.
So it's wonderful to see you. And I am so happy to be here. And I guess I'll just introduce myself and just jump in. And my understanding is I'm here to talk about, Sharon Myron. I am the Multnomah County Commissioner representing District 1, which is all of the county west of the Willamette River, and also the inner southeast out to Cesar Chavez. I am also an ER doctor, still practice occasionally some shifts, and I also do, I'm a volunteer with Portland Street Medicine, so I go out and provide medical care to people living outside unsheltered. I also am a neighbor. I live in Hillsdale, so the Multnomah Neighborhood Association is obviously very near and dear to my heart, and I am here to talk about housing and homelessness in Multnomah County, a very small topic, right? So Moses, I have a presentation, like a brief sort of, I'm going to try to do this share screen thing. Let's see. Oh, maybe this is, let's see.
You do have permission to share screen.
There we go.
All right, I'm going to do this slide. Oh, I didn't share the screen yet. Sorry, technology, it gets me every time. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. How come you see? I can't see your share screen.
Not yet.
Let's see if this does it. My apologies. Oh, wait, this might do it.
There we go.
No? Yay.
Got it.
Okay, I see it anyway. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I am going to go through here and basically start with, you're going to get all of my screens now. I don't know, just going back, apologies. Technology, okay. So I'm going to just start with an overview and just kind of this broad conceptualization of homelessness. And I apologize for starting very basic, but it's my experience and frankly, my experience both from talking with constituents, people in the county, and also my experience as a resident of Multnomah County and even a commissioner of just sometimes just feeling like you don't have an idea of what the basic landscape is, what shared definitions are, what we're talking about with homelessness in general, and where we go. So I'm going to start from the beginning, and I am going to try to go quickly to allow time for questions because that's super important. So basically, homelessness really stems from people not having sufficient income to meet their housing burden, the cost of housing. And when you boil it down, there are truly as many reasons for people being homeless as there are people experiencing it. But for the purpose of conceptualizing our system, I often consider two broad categories of people who experience homelessness. And the ways that I think about it, that I think is convenient for our purposes, are to consider homelessness as transitional or episodic. And these are people that have a period of homelessness. They become houseless often due to a life event. So they're in the hospital, they experience a divorce, they have loss of a job, so they're not getting the income, and they lose their housing. Chronic homelessness, and you might hear that term, that refers to people with two factors. They have serious underlying disabilities, and they either have been homeless for a year or more, or they have multiple episodes of homelessness in a single year. And so these, when we say chronic homelessness, often these are people that, you know, when you just hear the word homeless, this is sort of what you might think of. And when I say it's, you know, there are as many reasons as being homeless as there are people experiencing it, things are very fraught. There are so many people who are living on the edge and can barely meet their housing burden now. And any small change in their income and their experience, it will flip them over the edge. And especially right now, as we're facing the potential for evictions, once all of our eviction moratoria are expired, you know, we might be finding ourselves facing a lot more homeless people unless we can take meaningful action to prevent that. So again, this is not going to be rocket science, but there are generally three strategies to address homelessness. The first, that's the best overall, it's the most cost effective, it's better for people, and it's prevention. We often hear prevention's worth an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. Absolutely true in homelessness as well as in life. The next strategy is, if people cannot be prevented from becoming homeless, then they will be homeless, but we try to provide shelter. So how to keep people safe. And ideally, this is brief, it's transitional, we connect people to services and housing, and they can move through things. The final strategy is permanent housing. So if they're houseless, get them into shelter and then connect them to permanent housing. That's the way an ideal system works. And within this, the construct of permanent housing is the idea of supportive housing. And this is deeply affordable housing with wraparound services that meet people where they're at, such as mental health services, addiction services, employment services, you know, that not only provides the housing, but allows people who may be experiencing some significant challenges to sustain the housing they're in. And that has been shown in many studies to be the best long-term solution for chronic homelessness. So we're going to start getting complicated here. And I've asked my chief of staff, Cynthia Castro, is on this. She lives in Hillsdale as well, another neighbor, and asked her if it's possible to put in a chat. Otherwise, I'll just send it to you, Moses. But the landscape of homeless services in Multnomah County is absurdly complex. I mean, this is, you know, a drop in the bucket in terms of what's out there and how we coordinate our services. I've asked Cynthia to put a link in the chat to a summary that I've prepared. It sort of helped me think about and categorize what we're doing, and maybe it can be helpful to you as well. It's not a formal thing, literally. It's something I put together, but I've been told by people that they find it helpful. So there just a couple of key elements in this sort of loose system. A Home for Everyone is currently a coalition that exists to devise policy and budget recommendations and priorities for the city and county to be operationalized, to be put into practice by the Joint Office of Homeless Services. The Joint Office of Homeless Services is funded by the city and county, but the county has exclusive authority over that joint office, technically, through a governmental agreement. So it's sort of a weird joint office thing, but that's what it is. And they provide the services by contracting with a number of community-based organizations that are out there doing the work in the direct service. Other groups that are relevant here are, you'd think, but they're not part of this group. Public health. So we think infectious disease, vector control, mental health services, substance use disorder services. We have the Portland Housing Bureau, and that's under the authority of Commissioner Dan Ryan, who I knew spoke with you, I think, last week. And he's taking on the Safe Rest Villages, which is not part of a Home for Every, this other bigger picture. Then we have the City of Portland's Homelessness and Urban Camping Impact Reduction Program, you may have heard of, HUCR. So the Homeless Urban Camping Impact Program is not within the Joint Office of Homeless Services. Then we've got Metro on top of this. And then the list goes on, but I have provided that summary, which hopefully can be helpful. And when it comes to the challenges facing us right now, and unsheltered homelessness, people living outside, often with disabling conditions for over a year. Right now, we have unprecedented investments in our system to expand housing access in the coming year. Despite that, the region is going to face tremendous unmet housing needs. We don't know the exact numbers because, and I feel that this is shameful, but it is a situation that we have not counted how many, even attempted to count how many people are living outside for the past 3 years, including when including with the supportive housing services measure passing and unprecedented amounts of money coming into the system, including during a time of COVID when more and more people are living outside on the street. 3 years ago, the number of people living outside was listed in our point in time count, which many of you may have been involved with recently. We just did this. It was 2,500 people. And this is notoriously an inaccurate count. It is a significant undercount, misses a lot of nuance, doesn't talk about who people really are, what their needs are. But this hasn't been done in 3 years. And just think to yourselves, whether you think the number 2,500 has increased or decreased. Estimates I've heard that are reliable are 5,000 to 10,000 people living unsheltered outside. And I will add in squalid conditions.
Commissioner?
Am I over already?
We have about 5 minutes left to get a question or two from the audience.
Okay.
From the members. I think, this is such a larger picture beyond the SRV project is kind of, that's what I'm taking away from all.
Oh, yes.
I just got a question from John Pennington here. John, I'm going to unmute you and you can just ask the commissioner direct, okay?
Sure. Yep. Hey, thanks for the opportunity, and I know when I have a few minutes. Thank you, Sharon, for your support, and what you do, and Moses for running the neighborhood community. It's my first time attending one of these meetings, by the way, so I just wanted to add some comments, and hopefully there might be value to it. But one question that could be useful to go find out is what does a 150-foot barrier mean? from the Safe Rest Village. Who came up with that number? Was it like a mathematician, a doctor, scientist? Where did that come
So-
from?
So in talking about, what I came here prepared to talk about was homelessness, the county,
Oh, okay.
and,
Well, then you don't have to answer the question. So I thought we were going to address some of that. So
and that's exclusively under, that is Dan Ryan's, the commissioners.
Got
This
it.
is what I was
Got it.
pointing out. And so I honestly don't know.
Got it. Okay.
how
I
they
was just going to
came
say,
up
if
with-
somebody could roll that question up, that could be useful for the neighborhood and the people that, live here, to understand where that number came from. It feels like we're pushing a problem around. Our homeless people aren't chairs, to be, put inside that fence over there,
Exactly.
and in a shed. And it's just, we have plenty of money,
Yes,
like-
we do.
plenty of taxpayer money, and I contribute a lot to that, and I support it. But let's just make sure we're doing the right thing with it. And so I that's my big concern, is that we're moving chairs around. We're not really addressing the overall problem. And Sharon, also, I really do believe you need a third bullet on your first slide. I believe that drugs enabling is
They
a
are.
very big part of this story. I think
Yep.
that we encourage this behavior in people to move here because they know that this is exactly what
So
what they want, and so I think we should
I-
address that if we can.
I do. This is a very, and I'm like I said, I'm an emergency room doctor, and I go
Sure.
out and provide medical care directly to people living outside on the streets. And so I see the impact of mental illness and methamphetamine abuse and opioids directly. And I've been trying to sound that alarm forever. That is a huge issue. And I got to the beginning of my presentation, which did not address, further
I
along,
understand.
I think you would have seen responses to pretty much everything you raised. And as Moses said, the safe rest villages, we get distracted by that. And I know it's a huge issue in the community, but like you mentioned, it is a drop in the bucket. We're talking, even if all
Yep.
of them could go into service today, it would be 300 people if it all worked out and whatever.
Exactly.
And
This,
as I
and
mentioned,
this is not
5,000 to-
this is not East Germany either. It's like back when
And-
they would create these commodity type living situations and things like this. It's just like we
So-
are just
Yeah.
I need to take control of the conversation.
sorry. I didn't. I was. I think you answered my
John,
question, but
I respect your opinion, and that's why I let it go. And I know Sharon is tough enough to be able to take a tough question. So,
okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't think it was a tough question. I just thought it was
No,
an
but-
obvious question. So
to
but,
address
So-
that issue, so it's all good.
I will make this slideshow that I'd prepared available to you. I have an approach to people living outside that I think addresses, I consider it in terms of harm reduction, which is an approach which mitigates negative impacts of, it's the idea of what are we going to do for people living in squalor as we're working toward longer term solutions? And the answer is not only safe rest villages. And so I have a proposed approach, which I would love to discuss that plan and could talk, maybe come back at a later date. And it is a very different approach that is holistic and coordinated and will allow for addressing the issue at scale instead of the little one-offs that we do. I described the barriers and just noting third down, behavioral health, methamphetamine, fentanyl. We're not addressing this at all adequately. Data, strategy, counts, they're siloing, et cetera. We're not doing this well at all. And then I have a description of what I believe is needed, which I would love to engage further with all of you about. And I have plans and thoughts, would love your input. And I'm happy to answer any questions here if you have time, one or two more. And I'm always available on my website by email in my office. So
Right
I'm
on.
very accessible.
You're appreciated very much. And I know that we'll be talking about these issues for a while, I'm sure. And
So,
your input um, is solid. I appreciate it. And I think it goes towards understanding the larger picture here as we start to address the smaller picture here, you know, so thank you for that. And go ahead and unsave or unshare your screen.
oh, I will unshare.
Thank you for sharing.
You're so welcome.
Okay, very good. And thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
No, thank you so much.
Let's go ahead now and get to new business. I know this is the section that everybody's been talking about. First off, let's take care of credentialing, get a quick report, talk about the voting and the discussion ground rules here as we go forward. Once again, if you are a member of the neighborhood, if you live in the neighborhood, or if you have a business in the neighborhood, if you have the ability to, I need you to change your name, to rename yourself and put an M in front of your name. That will show that you are a voting member. Like, for instance, I see Kathy Sampson. Kathy, if you can, I can do it for you. I'm going to go ahead and do that. But everyone, that's the way that we have to do credentialing here, is that we have to be able to identify the folks in the audience that are voting members to make sure that all the votes are appropriate. Let's see. So if you just, yeah, perfect. Now, we do have sometimes with couples. So if that's your case, if that's the case, you put an M2. And you have to make sure that both folks, people are present when voting. And we can see in the video when we're doing the vote count. Makes sense. We're just trying to make this as easy as possible using the Zoom features that we have. And it really is appreciated how we're going to do this. Now, let's talk about for a moment how we're going to handle points of order, and actual voting. Voting is, I think we have a small enough audience here where we can do the count through just hands. And we'll do
We have excuse me to interrupt, but we have 107 people on the call.
Mhm.
That's a pretty hard thing to do. But that number, I don't know how many are members, but if a large number are, that would be a little
Right.
tricky. Back,
Well, there's the reason I suggested is because when everybody raises their hand voting on one way or another or abstaining, they can their totals will be there, and we can use those totals there at the bottom of our host of our the bottom of the participant list for us hosts. Is that correct?
raise your hand for a particular part of it. The total number that have raised their hands shows immediately. We have to go back and find out how many of those had another person to vote and add that to the number of hands raised.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, that makes sense. John, you had a quick question. Somebody had a question on chat.
How do you become a member? So I have no problem putting a M in front of my name or whatever, but is there a process to become a member?
Well, you have to live in the neighborhood, or you have to own a
Okay,
business.
I'm right here, right down the road. So
Awesome. Put an M in front of your name.
okay, so
Awesome. And you'll be able to vote.
just do it right here on the Zoom meeting. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
technically challenged right now, so this is
Oh, Shaw, you've got the headset on. You're ready to go. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna just make sure, go through the list here real quick. I see like Peter. Let me get you, Peter, and make sure that you're able to vote. Get you vote. We're gonna just take a minute here to make sure that we get as many of these as possible, so we don't have to go through and make it easier. Let's see here. Michael Kale. Michael, are you in the neighborhood?
Yes, I'm in the neighborhood, but sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to change my name. I'm a little bit challenged.
Oh, it's all good. It's all. All right. I'll let you take care of that, sir, and let me know if you need to. Finally, I see Nancy and Peter Carew. Nancy and Peter, your folks are neighbors, right?
No, we belong to Ash
Ash
Creek
Creek.
neighborhood.
Ah, we're just right down the street. Well, thank you for being here. Let's see here. Anybody else? Once again, if you're having any kind of a challenge, please raise your hand. Let me know. Let us know so that we can kind of address it as we go forward here.
Moses, Jeff Hom isn't indicated as a member. He lives on Troy Street here across from me.
Okay, here, wait a second here. Well, whom was that again?
Jeffrey Hom.
Okay, wait a second.
Moses, if you'd like to continue to conduct the meeting,
I
I can
would
take care
love
of those
to.
raised hands.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you very much, Will.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's dive right in here. So what we'll be doing is we'll be able to report here back to us here in a few moments as far as how many we have that have no voting members that we have. I've kind of gone over the ground rules of it. We're going to be having to do the hands up and for each yay or a nay or an abstain. And we will then be able to take screenshots of the totals if necessary to be able to verify it, and all the files will be saved. So, and we're being recorded so we can make sure that everybody's vote is counted properly. During this process too, I've got to be real strict on Robert's Rules of Order as far as making sure that things get done and we do it in an expeditious and in a fair manner. So that's what we're at there. What we did, okay, so right now what we're considering, what's first in the new business is motions that have been presented to us 7 days in advance. There was, for those of you that may not have seen it, I sent out an email this morning about stating the background of what led to the thought process, what was the thought process behind the 3 different motions that we have. And what I do want to say is I don't want to take too much time rehashing that argument, or that argument, that my thoughts there, how I shared it in the email, because I think I was trying to make sure that everything was taken into account. But what we do have here is, because of the new, fundamentally, is that with the meeting that we had on the 28th with the Commissioner Ryan's office, we learned a few things. And that we learned that it's going to be, that this project is going full scale ahead. And there are fewer and fewer ways to prevent it from happening. We'll talk about those in a sec. But we also learned that the city is open for negotiation to help mitigate the impact of it. And that was driven home by the fact that the West Hills Christian School has gone into their own conversations with the city to develop a good neighbor agreement on the in regards to the project, to make sure that all their concerns, and they've come out in support of the project inside of that. And so we learned that. And then we also, so that led to the fact that we don't have a means to influence or mitigate the folks that are directly affected by this situation, because the motion that was presented to us in 7 days in advance is a very simple one, basically stating that, here, I'll pull that up. Pardon me. Okay, so here we go. The motion as it's submitted, it basically states that we move that the Multnomah Neighborhood Association participate along with other stakeholders in a good neighbor agreement process for the Safe Rest Village at Sears Armory. That's the motion as submitted. And Now, we have other motions, other positions that the M&A has taken over the last 60 days, over the last 2 to 3 months. And those are, the status of those is there's still the conditional use, land use review motion that was made on December 14th. And that's still active as a means that may stop the project. You know, it's still in action, as I understand it. The second is the motion that directed monies towards the Sears West Side Emergency Response Center. And your board received information, clarification about the legality of that, the fact that the ordinances were referencing money that is federal and state grants, and they have to be, by us defining where those monies go the way that we did in the motion, it's illegal. They can't do that. And so we need to, if we want to be congruent with the first one, we need to change the second one and take out the money demand, the request to move the money along with it. I think that there's broad consensus out there right now for establishing the Sears Armory for a emergency resource center or staging area like it was originally has been intended for. And I would entertain a motion later to that effect, that we fully support it. But the challenge is right now is that the way the motion that we have is not appropriate because of that money demand. Thirdly was the motion that was made about directing the money to Helping Hands. And directing the city money to Helping Hands in the form of grant isn't legal. And it's kind of a moot point because the Helping Hands organization is very involved, is probably going to be the manager at SRV, we learned at the meeting. So we as a board decided to support the potential new position from the first motion to reconsider those other two motions so that we stay congruent. And I know that the word rescind has kind of triggered folks a little bit, but it was only meant as, it's just a technical requirement to reconsider a motion after the date it was passed. And it doesn't mean that we want the motion rejected, just reviewed. So, and so that would lead to where we are right now. And that's the first motion. I notice, and now I'm back at my screen and I see a lot of people having questions about this, and we're going to get to these. So what we have here is a motion that has been presented that doesn't require a second, that we can go straight to discussion, pro and con. And so I'd like to do just that. If you are someone that would like to discuss this from the pro side, please let me know. I'm going to start a queue. And then also we'll just go back and forth. Okay. So I see that Kylie, I see a queue right now of hands from who's had them up the longest, of Kylie, Robert and Karen, Diane, Lori, Ruth, and Robin. Okay. So Kylie, would you like to speak in favor of this motion or against this motion?
Could you specify which motion?
Motion number 1.
About a good neighbor agreement, or yeah, I'd like to speak against it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. You're welcome to start.
Okay. So this motion was put forward by Amanda Fritz, who I believe in the last meeting that we saw her speak mentioned that she doesn't actually live in Multnomah Village. She lives in Garden Home, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but as I recall, she owns a second home here in Multnomah Village. And what I keep seeing over and over and over is people coming to these meetings and really speaking for us, speaking for those of us who live next to the project, and trying to really speaking over us when many of us have legitimate concerns about safety. Many of us would like a seat at the table to be able to negotiate the terms of the SRV. But I don't see that is Amanda Fritz or anyone else who lives outside of Multnomah Village's job to spearhead that. I think that needs to be led by people inside Multnomah Village, particularly those people who live very close to the project and who will be directly impacted. So as of yet, I don't currently feel comfortable with the neighborhood association representing my interests, because I haven't seen the neighborhood association represent my interests yet. Nobody has reached out to neighbors who live directly around the project to see what kind of safety or mitigation measures we'd like. And so, yeah, I think that we should not vote to let outsiders dictate the policies that we have to live with. I think Frank Rudloff is creating a subcommittee for the MNA or for the SRV. And we need to see what that subcommittee comes up with. And we need to know that the correct people, the people who are going to be impacted, will have a voice, and not that outsiders will speak over us and speak publicly as if they are, the people who will be impacted.
Wonderful. Thank you for your comments, Kylie.
Mhm.
All right. So now in favor, whom would like to speak in favor of it? Lori is up next. Lori, are you pro or con?
Hi, I actually, Moses, I messaged you a couple of times in the chat, just because there are so many people here this evening, and wondering if there is a way that you could either screen share or show in print the motions. I think, especially for folks who were not at the previous meetings, it's a little bit confusing. I had to read over the 2 and 3 several times. So if there's a way to screen share that so that folks can see what we're talking about.
You got it. Let me.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. No, of course, we've got to have that up. Just trying to figure out. Sorry, guys, 20 seconds. Getting the material so that the motion brought up so I can screen share it with everybody.
In the interim, can you share with us how to raise your hand on Zoom, please?
Yes.
Well, can you do that?
Okay, I'll do that while you're looking for that, Moses. To raise your hand on Zoom, if you're on a phone, you do a *6 or lower it *6. If you're not, there's down at the bottom of your screen or somewhere, there should be a button called Reactions. You click on that button and there should be one that says raise hand. It's as simple as that. Take a look.
Thank you.
So real quick, I just did that, and all I see is like thumbs up, smiley face, and other things, and I was clicking on more. How do you do?
There should be one at the very-
At the very bottom. Okay, third bar down.
Third bar down. You got it.
Person. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the first measure here, the first motion that we are speaking to. Here, 20 seconds here. Okay, Lori, does that answer your, does that answer your question there, or the reason why you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Appreciate that.
And then, okay, so Ruth, would you like to speak in favor of the or against this motion?
Hi, sorry, this is Ruth Adkins, along with my husband Todd, speaking in favor. So the Good Neighbor Agreement is really the way that we're going to be, we and the other stakeholders are going to be able to be at the table with the city, with whoever, the service provider is managing the site. So this seems like a no-brainer to me. Why would we not participate in the Good Neighbor Agreement? Let's move forward and make, seek the mitigations and safeguards and agreements that we need and make this the best it can be. So that's, I think this motion makes a ton of sense. And this is the way that we need to engage to make it, to have the best possible outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, up next, Pat and Carrie. I'm trying to find somebody against, actually, pardon me, wait a minute, against in favor. So I need to find somebody against. John, I'm assuming.
I'm against, yeah, I can provide a comment, and if my vote can help in that participation. Is that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, so just, quick input. So, I added in the chat, the designation in the Sears Armory where the Safe West Village is planned to go. This was designated as a emergency center on Southwest Portland because of the bridges and everything like that. So when we have the big one, right, the earthquake and stuff, what is the mitigation? I want somebody else to ask that question. Where are we going to put that facility to do the things that was intended to do? It goes along with my other question about the 150-foot buffer. Who's the scientist that came up with that number? And so yeah, I'm 100% against it because it has not been thought through.
Right, John, could you speak to the topic on hand, which is basically the motion and why you're against it?
I think I just said it.
Well,
For those reasons, because we don't have any mitigation, we don't have any backfill at the Sears Armory for emergency management support. If we have the Cascadia earthquake, for example, what we need the Portland, we need to understand what is going to be used in Southwest to mitigate this. Right now we're just going to put some sheds there to house some people, and that's going to be great. But we're not actually answering the question of what the whole purpose of the facility was there for in the first place. So can we ask that question? I mean, is that fair?
I right now I can't answer that question for you, and I'm going to move on. Thank you.
Okay.
Up next is Robin.
Yeah, thank you, Moses. So first, I'd like to say that it is not Amanda Fritz who made this motion. I made this motion. Her name is on there. But the other two names on there are people who do live in the neighborhood. Amanda Fritz owns property in the neighborhood, and that is one of the definitions of being a member of the association. This is partly my motion, so I'll speak to it. I think Ruth said it very well. The Good Neighbor Agreement puts the neighborhood association in a position to work with many stakeholders, including the city, including those who live right beside the Sears Armory property, to try to make this work in the best possible way. If we can't make it work, we can tell the city that it's not going to work. But if we don't enter a good neighborhood agreement, a good neighbor agreement, we don't really have that voice. The group that Frank Rudloff and Peter Sampson, my husband, are going to run, the work group, is in fact a piece of the neighborhood association. They're under the auspices of the neighborhood association. So it only makes sense that that group could work with the others involved to try to make the best possible result of this plan that the city has. And I will end it there. Thanks, folks. I am a neighbor.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you very much. All right, here, wait a second. Stop share. All right, let's go to now, just so I can see a little bit better here. Someone who is, okay, we got John. Pat and Carrie, did you want to speak in favor or against?
Well, I want to express some concern, and I guess that means I'm against.
Thank you.
There's very little discussion in the past and present conversation about responsibility and accountability of those living on the street. And you were asked to be compassionate, and yet there's very little conversation about compassion for folks who work hard, pay taxes, keep their properties clean. And the situation on the street has become intolerable. It's a health and safety issue, and I cannot believe that concentrating a number of homeless folks in one spot isn't going to attract more of the same into the neighborhood. And somehow politicians are very reluctant to call out the idea of accountability for people, and I haven't heard any conversation about accountability and responsibility for people that are going to be living in the Safe Rest Village. And so whatever outcome this vote has, if it passes, should have real expectations with teeth and provisions for pushback, because right now the city does not have a very good track record on this, and to think that this is a panacea and somehow everything's going to change, and the behavior and the strength with which the city addresses these problems is somehow going to blossom out of nothing. I think the past tells a different story. If I had my druthers, I would have a counter motion that says the Multnomah Neighborhood Association opposes the location of the Safe Rest Village at the Sears Armory. There's 107 people on this call, and I've been to these meetings when there's been 7 people on the call. So I cannot believe that 107 people are sitting here waiting to say how great an idea it is. So I think, if I may finish, to echo the lady that spoke a couple of people ago, I do think the neighborhood association should reflect what the actual feelings in the neighborhood are. So, we'll see with the vote, but is this the only motion that's going to be considered tonight?
Right. Well, we could spend all night considering motions, and that would be, your parview, our parview. One thing I do need to do real quick. Okay, I need to do this. Pardon me. Thank you for those comments, by the way, Pat. I'm going to go ahead and okay. I guess I was being amazingly unrealistic on the scheduling of tonight's meeting, the agenda, because I had scheduled a half-hour presentation at 8 o'clock with the Portland Charter Commission and their representative, and that's impossible. I think at this moment we still have to take this moment and go forward. Who was that? Wait a second. Julie, are you on the call, Julie Meyer? Oh yes, I see you right there. Yes.
I am.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Julia. As you can tell, we're having quite the neighborhood discussion on this issue, and we do need to extend more time to allow everybody to do this. And you've been so gracious about about being here. Would you mind if we rescheduled your presentation?
Of course not. I am happy to come back whenever you will have me.
I do want to just very quickly tell everybody about what, in my email out to everyone, I included a link about what the Portland Charter Review Commission's tasks are coming up, as far as potentially changing the form of government that we have here in the city of Portland, and also how we elect our city commissioners. But there's so much more to it, folks. And so Julia, thank you for your flexibility. Thank you very much. And I'll circle back around with you, and we'll get you rescheduled for next week or for next month. And we can have a good extended conversation about this topic.
That sounds great. No, thank you.
Thank you, Julia. I appreciate it. I appreciate your flexibility. All right, folks, here we go. Let's go forward then with what we've been talking about right now. Yeah, okay, so I've got 3 and against. Whom would like to speak in favor of the motion? I'd like, I see one of the makers of the motion, Shami, gosh darn it. Here, I'm gonna unmute you at least, and you can.
Yep, Charmaine.
Charmaine, pardon me.
Yes, and I am also a resident of Multnomah Village, and I work in Multnomah Village. I'm an architect. I have experience with the city in development for many years. The Good Neighbor Agreement is the format in which we get the opportunity to make our voices be heard. And so that is why I co-authored this motion and support this motion. This is the pathway that the city has for us, and we should take the opportunity to use it to be able to voice our concerns and some of the very valid questions that have come up about accountability on all parties and safety and neighbors. This is the way we can do that. So I would encourage people to support it.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. Let's see here. Make sure to lower your hands when you're finished speaking so that I don't confuse you all as someone who's valid. Okay, so next up would be someone, Robin, I'm going to lower your hand as well, just so I know that you've had a chance to speak. Oh, Robin, did you want to make another comment? Are you back in the queue? Is that what you're doing? Okay. I do need to get one more person. I'm going to do 2 more pro cons. And then I think we should call the question and go forward with a vote. I know that there's a lot of people on that want to talk about it, and I'm hoping I'm finding a good balance and efficient in taking care of it and going in doing this. Mark Booth, did you want to speak in favor or against?
I'd be against.
Okay, please go right ahead, sir.
Sure. I'll try to be brief. I think we both agree with things that Kylie has said related to whether or not the neighborhood association is currently representing the interests of the neighbors, especially the immediate neighbors, things that Pat said about accountability. I don't think it's the right thing at this time to enter into a good neighbor agreement. I'd be concerned because in the city's website, they say that good neighbor agreements are not enforceable. And with respect to the Sears Armory becoming an emergency response center, we've already seen how the city views what's written down on a piece of paper. So that's in a nutshell kind of where we stand against it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of it? Robin, because you've had a chance to speak once. If there's not, then I can let you speak again. Frank, did you want to speak in favor or against? Were you in favor?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to say a couple of things. I guess I acknowledge all of the concerns that have been expressed relative to not being heard, by neighbors who are live adjacent and very close by the site. But having been down this road for 20 some years, I also understand that this is the vehicle the city offers us to have a conversation. I don't go into it with any illusions about what comes out of it. It is, as has been said, not enforceable. But I think that it's another way for us to demonstrate our good faith. And as far as neighbors being represented on it, in that meeting, the neighborhood association is whoever shows up, and you have to show up if you want to be represented. So, and it spent a lot of energy trying to be representative, and we aren't representative. We represent the people who show up and whose voices who express themselves. And, and if that's by letter, if that's by speaking in a meeting, that's great. But, and I guess I'd also just like to say that I don't regard going into a good neighbor agreement discussion as being an acknowledgement that we accept that the SRV is going to be developed at the site. I'm not assuming that is a done deal at this point. I may be foolish in believing that, but I think that we have to continue to do sort of proceed in an honorable way, whether the city does or not. But so that's my way of saying I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. Okay, 8:07, two more, pro con. Okay. Let's, I want to hear from somebody I haven't.
Can I do one more con? I'm
Actually, no, because I've
Okay.
got people that have already spoken.
okay. Fair enough. Okay,
wait,
I'll just add it in the
Okay,
chat
fair.
room so you have it for the record. Thank you.
John Hunter, are you speaking pro or con, sir? You may be on mute. Oh, I'm sorry, John, we can't hear you. You'll need to unmute your phone or unmute yourself. There we go.
Oh, Moses, are you talking to me? Is that what
No,
you're trying to say?
John Hunter, pardon me.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say that's not somebody different.
There, now you
There
can
we
talk.
go.
I'm unmuted now.
Hello,
Can you hear me?
wonderfully, very well. Yes, we can.
Fine. My name is John Hunter. My wife and I live in Multnomah Village on 28th. We're property owners. We pay property taxes through the nose, $7,000 a year and more. And I think that this plan is well-intentioned and is bound to fail, and therefore I oppose it. It is based on a very faulty premise that the homeless problem is a housing problem. It isn't a housing problem. It's an addiction problem. It's a mental illness problem. It's an economic disruption problem. It demands direct intervention, medical, social. The idea of creating a prettified tent encampment on Multnomah Avenue is a silly idea. And I think that however well-intentioned it is, it should be quashed.
I appreciate your comments, John. Very blunt. I appreciate that. All right, thank you.
It's candid.
Candid. That's
And
a
I think that it's
I
useful.
agree with you. I agree with you. That's very cool.
Well-intentioned plans have gone awry constantly in an inept and ineffectual city and county governance.
Well, that candid, borderlining on darn cynical.
Moses,
I
Moses,
appreciate that.
Moses.
Robin, we have one
I'm
more to
sorry.
go. You've already had an opportunity to speak.
I want to clarify what the motion says. Just very quickly, the motion doesn't say, shall we accept the Safe Rest Village? The motion doesn't say, is it a good idea? The motion says, we would like to be in a good neighbor agreement to work on with the city on this issue. That's the motion. It's not, do we want a village or not?
Thank you for clarifying that. And it looks, and I've reposted on my, oh, wait a second, no, I have not.
I have a point of clarification, actually, Moses. If we were to vote not in favor of going into starting a good neighbor agreement right now, can we start a good neighbor agreement later? Does this preclude us from being in a good neighbor agreement at any point?
It's a good question. I don't think so. My thought would be when I would, we could enter into, well, here's the thing. I mean, a good neighbor agreement has to have willing partners to negotiate the agreement with. And what this measure is doing is it's basically dovetailing off of the good neighbor agreement that has been created and facilitated by the West Hills Christian School in addressing their concerns. We, in a best case scenario, I would think that we would be perfectly in alignment with the demands that they are making because they were the demands that we were making as far as addressing the adjacent property owners' real valid concerns about security. I mean, West Hills Christian School felt that that was their best route. And so we're in a situation here where we can either lead and can go in and do what they have done, acknowledge the situation, acknowledge the situation to the point where we would want to begin to negotiate these good neighbor agreements with them to try to mitigate the impact. Or we can align ourselves and let them continue to do it, and we just kind of follow, or we resist it and we just get in the way, we resist it. And I don't, that's basically our three options. And we have chosen, as the board, we chose option number one, to go with it. And that's what this motion is reflecting, is that first option. So
is this encampment a fait accompli?
John, honestly, I think so. Everything I heard at that
That
community
it should be
forum,
resisted in every way possible, or we will have Needle Park down the street from the school you're talking about, and all of those children.
I understand
You
that,
walk
but I don't want to get into a side discussion with it, John, please.
This
But-
is not a side discussion.
But
It's a call
but
to-
it is an orderly discussion, and you're discussing it out of order, sir, please. So what we've got here is we were at the argument one, and we have one more in favor, and then we need to take a vote. We could talk about this all night. All right. And the last person I want to be able to speak is someone that is new here, Suzanne and Desmond Earl. Did you want to speak in favor or against it, sir?
Actually, I'll try and get my video working again. I just wanted to say that if the motion passes, would it be possible to represent both for those who wish for the encampment, the secure space for houseless people, and those who would also speak, from a much more kind of cautious point of view? Would it be good for us to have, as a community, at least? I mean, I come from a system where PRS TV is the representative kind of voting system, where we vote for 5 people in each district, not just first past the post where you get either blue or red. We actually can get red and less red, and I mean left when I say that, center, blue, green, and so on. I'm fortunate to be living here now, and we've just bought a house in Spring Garden. I look forward to moving in 2 days. But I think I'd like to suggest that we have people that represent both those who, even if we debate on with the motion, and if we support the motion, we should have people who do not necessarily agree with the pods and the way Dan Ryan has and the city has decided in their version of being a good neighbor to implement this, and those of us who wish to see it be a success. So it would be good for both viewpoints to be represented. That's my request as an addendum, if possible.
Very good. And that makes a lot. And I agree that, yeah, you make a very valid point. All right.
Moses, could I ask a quick question? Because there's something I'm still a little unclear about.
Yes, I'm going to consider it a point of order or a point of information. Go ahead.
Yes. So in the previous meeting with Ryan's staff, I had thought I'd understood them to say that they will only negotiate one single good neighbor agreement. Does this mean that we would be joining West Hills Christian School, or would we not be? That's what I'm a little confused about.
Why is this lady doing?
The way I see, here's how I understand it is that this motion would ask us to create our own begin the steps to create our own good neighbor agreement with the city.
Thank you. That was not clear to me. I was confused after the last meeting.
Now, having said that, it would be obviously very advantageous if we were aligned with them, because they have lawyers and they have made progress and they have made on very specific issues. We don't have to, and that's kind of where we were at with in the decision when the board was talking about this, is that the work groups is where we have to we have to still figure out what the good neighbor agreement would be to talk to, what are the concerns that would have to be developed, addressed in that good neighbor agreement.
Thanks, that's really helpful. That really helps. Thank you.
So we're right there at the very beginning of being able to get these things into a good neighbor agreement with this, and then from there, either hopefully align ourselves, partner with the West Hills because they got the lawyers and they've got the established, or on our own advocating for this as just doing it on our own. I'm willing to go either way. But
Thanks. Thanks. I was uncertain, so that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, so
With other stakeholders. The motion specifically says with other stakeholders. And yes, having people on both sides is a part of a good neighbor agreement. It's completely assumed that there will be people on all sides in that agreement. Thank you.
okay. What we need to do now, folks, is we need to take a vote on this motion. Okay, so now we're going to take our first vote based off of the system here. So I needed to have everybody, I'm going to lower everybody's hands that are currently up. And so that we can have a clean one here. Okay. So we are at, once again, sharing the screen so that we all know exactly what so you can see the verbiage again. Maybe I was starting.
Moses, can we re-qualify the people? I'm not sure everyone who is a member has put an M in front of their name. If there's anyone who is a member, and that means you live in Multnomah neighborhood, or you own property, or you own a business, and you please raise your hand as though you were voting, and we'll see who does not have an M and make sure they've got one before we take the vote.
Okay, go for it.
Excuse me, hello, this is Jeffrey Hahn. I reside in Multnomah Village. For some reason, there's no hand to use to vote. Yeah.
Wonderful. Once we get to that point where we are voting, we'll call on you separately, sir, to make sure.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'm putting the motion back up here as well. And Will, you're doing your thing right now to make sure that we're confirming credentials.
I don't see anyone who is a member and has raised their hand to say they don't have an M in front of their name. So if you are a member and you don't have an M in front of your name, or you're not sure, raise your hand on the machine, which you can do by going to the reactions part of your lower part of your screen and clicking on raise hand. Okay, I'm looking to see. Still don't see anybody.
I don't have a raise.
I'm assuming at this point that everyone who is a member has an M in front of their name. If it's
Will,
yes.
Will, I'm seeing a couple people that have their hands
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry. Oh, I take it back. No more than a couple. They all have M's. They all have M's. Elisa Castellano does not. So let me give her a.
Yes, I'm seeing a Betsy McCarthy as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, that's they're popping up there.
How do we downvote, by the way?
Are we voting or is this for membership?
This is for membership. This is for membership, not for voting.
Everybody has their hands up, whether they have an M or not. So
Right. People who do not have an M, people who, I'm going to lower all hands again, if I may. And then I will start again. If you are a member and do not have an M in front of your name, raise your hand. Raise your machine hand.
I'm sorry, see, I don't have a hand to raise, so I'll just have to vote just by voice vote for me. Sorry.
Hold on.
Thank you.
Ryan Booth, I'm putting him in.
Clearly, you can tell I don't have a hand to raise either.
We'll get it. We'll get, okay. Wait a minute. Okay, and I'm doing
Could we perhaps
Joseph.
all go on camera and actually raise our hands if we want to vote?
Josephine. Hold on, it won't take that long. There aren't that many of them.
Hang in there, folks.
Josephine Hunter.
We're almost ready.
Betsy McCarthy, MJ Rower, raising her name if I find her. Okay. Okay, I have Betsy McCarthy. Anybody else? I don't see any other hands raised. So it looks like everyone who is a member has an M in front of their name. Someone who said they do not have a hand to raise. Who is that?
We need an M2.
Okay.
Okay, M2, Betsy
Betsy
McCarthy. All
McCarthy.
right, very good.
My name again is John Hunter. I have no hand to raise, or I would.
Okay,
raise.
John, we'll take a look at you right there. We're getting Betsy McCarthy's M2. Okay, John Hunter. You have an M, but you say you don't have a hand to raise. Okay, do you have at the bottom of your screen a little thing over to the lower right that says reactions?
It says what?
Reactions. On the
No.
lower right part of your screen.
No, I do not.
What do you have over there? You have one that says
I have the
more.
lower part of my screen. I have something that says leave.
Do you
Have
have
what?
participants in the bottom center of your screen?
Yes, I do.
Okay, if you click on participants,
Okay.
it should give you a list of all the people in the meeting on your right. And at the bottom left of that pop-up, there should be a raise hand symbol.
Okay, great.
Got it?
Do you see that? Okay.
The technology is the other problem.
Okay, very good. Okay, I appreciate your patience on all of this, folks, but let's go ahead. Will, do we feel confident to go? Do you feel confident that we can go forward now?
I think we can do it. Let's lower all the hands first.
I-
Clear all the feet. There's two
Okay.
people with hands raised, Josephine Hunter and Kathy McIntosh. Do you have a question or is it leftover raised hand? Okay. Okay, I've lowered all hands. So at this point, I think we're ready to vote. Moses, you want to go through the vote routine?
I do. Okay, so what we're going to ask is that, okay, Joan, you have your hand up, but unless you have a point of order or a question, we need to take we're about ready to take the vote.
Right. No, I'm just not able to put the M, but I am a neighbor.
Okay, we got you down. You got it. Go ahead,
Thanks.
and I'll lower your hand. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here we are. Motion number one is we move that the Multnomah Neighborhood Association participate along with other stakeholders in a good neighbor agreement process for the Safe Rest Village at Sears Armory.
Yes.
We're gonna do
Yes.
first, we're gonna do those in favor of this motion. To be in favor of this motion, you need to raise your hand. If you're not in favor of this motion, do not do anything. If you're abstaining, do not do anything. The only thing we are voting on right now is those in favor of this motion.
All right. At this point, I see 50 raised hands, 51. Keep going until,
Okay, I'm gonna give a countdown of 10, 9, and if you want to vote, you need to raise your hand or get Will's attention. 8,
voting yes. Mhm.
and we're voting yes. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All
Will,
right.
right, we have a count.
We have a count of
Calling
50.
in on the phone, I'm voting
Oh, yes, okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, first we have the hand raising count, and then I will get to anybody that's on the phone, Beth.
Beth, you can raise your hand. You *6.
Okay, but please confirm the count. Well, where we at right now?
The count, except for Beth, is 53 places where the one hand has been raised. Okay.
Is there anybody besides Beth that thinks that they didn't raise their hand or has been unable to raise their hand and wants to vote in favor of this motion?
Are you counting the M2s as 2 votes?
No, we're counting just one of the M2s. We'll do another count for the other half of the M2s. And if you're an M2, you have to start your video and see that there are 2 people physically here. At this point, what we're going to do is screen capture the votes, the individuals. Will take a little bit, so bear with us, leave it right where it is, and we'll move as rapidly as possible.
Will, you know what we also have? The hands that are up right now, the 53 that are up right now,
Right.
We need to make sure to take into account the M2s within that 53.
Yes, I understand that. That's part of it. We just got it
Right.
going here.
Okay, wonderful. So
Hang
give us
on
a
there.
second. Don't move, don't change anything,
Don't
folks.
change anything. Sorry about this. This takes a little while to do.
We're just calculating the vote here right now. It'll just be a second. I don't know about y'all, but I'm looking forward to in-person meetings again.
Yes, this is a bit of a pain to do. Let's see where we were. Right.
Make sure not to adjust or make any other change. We've got 53 and we're counting the M2s now. Making sure the M2s are in there.
Okay. Okay, we now have okay. And okay. One more set and we've got it. Okay, I now have the vote yes tallied for the first of the multiples. Now I'm going to lower all hands and we'll vote the second person in the M2s voting yes. If the second person in the M, if you're M2 and your second person is voting yes, have raised their hand.
So once again, if you're an M2 resident, this is counting the second vote of your M2. And we are doing this in favor of the motion.
Okay. Okay, I have 20 coming up at this point.
All right, so, okay,
73.
okay. Do you have a count?
Not yet. I've got the first screen of the 20
Okay,
and
We're also counting the M2s that are not in favor. Is that correct?
yes, that'll be a second round.
Okay, got it.
It's a fairly slow process, but hang in there. It's actually faster than hand counting. Okay. Okay, because there are many fewer of them. Yeah, okay, let me just a second. Okay. Okay.
how you doing, Will?
I'm just about got him. Just about got him. All right, now we have that out of the way. I'm going to lower all hands again.
Okay, perfect.
Now,
Okay,
the
now
notes.
we are starting fresh. And the motion, those that are voting against the motion, please raise your hand. And we are counting only one vote of the M2s of those that are against the motion, that want to vote against the motion. So this first round, if you're an M2 in this first round, you're voting one, and then we'll come back around and we'll get the second vote, okay? Okay, well. Once again, these are the folks that are voting, we're voting in against the motion number one. And this is the first vote of the M2s.
No, this is the first, the first, it's everybody. M1s or M2s, doesn't matter. Your first person vote if you're voting no.
Very good. Okay. Do we have a fine? You got that number recorded?
I have a number of 16 no's, the first person. Let me
Okay.
capture that. It looks like it's going to pass, but let's get the actual number before we get
Agreed.
way here.
Is there anybody on the phone that would like to vote against this, or somebody that we have not, wasn't able to raise a hand visibly? Okay, cool. All right. We'll go ahead and lower the hands and let's do the
And
second.
I'm still recording the vote. Hang on a second.
Thank you, sir.
Once it's recorded, then we'll do it.
Okay.
Okay, I have recorded the vote. It's 16 on the first part, so let's get the second people. I will now, well, the hands are lowered. The second person of an M2, or third if there is, second person of the M2, if you're voting no on the resolution for a good neighbor agreement or equivalent, please raise your hand. I'm counting 10.
Once again, we're counting the votes of the M2s voting against the motion.
The second person of the M2s.
Correct.
I see no more votes. I'll record those.
Okay. I need to ask now if there's anybody that wants to abstain. It's a technicality, and not vote, be recorded as not voting on this issue. I need to lower the hands.
Okay, I'll lower the hands for you.
What's the differential right now?
Okay, right now we have. Wait a minute, I went down to-
Actually, let's,
there were
if
10.
you, that's a little bit out.
Well, the reason I asked the
Kind of out
question
of
is
order.
because I will abstain because I disagree with this whole motion altogether.
Okay.
So, but if we're close and I
No.
can make a difference, I want to keep my vote. But right now I will be the abstainer. I believe that we need to do something different.
I appreciate your comment, and let us continue with this vote, please.
Okay, well then you asked the question, anybody abstain? I just told you I abstain. How about that?
Okay, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have
And thanks for your effort and the work that you do.
Well,
Okay,
thank you for-
I now have 11 votes of the second person against, so I'm going to record that vote again to be sure it's there.
Okay.
And okay. And make sure it's recorded just before I get too carried away here.
All right, when you're ready, you can report the final totals.
Yes, I will. Just a second.
I'd like to ask a question. This is Kathy Sampson.
Sure, Kathy, point of order from Kathy.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to inquire if 2 votes were counted for my household because there are 2 R2 adults living here, even though I didn't have an M2.
I would venture to say because it's an M and you didn't vote the second, and we were only counting M2s, qualified M2s that second round, that we only counted your vote the first time.
Okay, so could you please add a second one for
I
my
need-
house?
Well, what, if I remember correctly, that is a,
Well, there are 2 adults in my household and we are both voting
Okay.
against it.
I get- okay, so.
I would like
I do
my
wanna clear-
second vote counted. Thank
No,
you.
no, I feel you. I feel you. Let's just go ahead and make sure that that second vote is included in the round there, because I do, Kathy is.
I really appreciate it
Yeah,
because
as long as the second vote is there at the, with you as well, that's all that
Okay,
matters.
what was this? Who was the two again? I'm sorry, I didn't get the
Kathy
name.
Sampson,
Kathy Sampson. Yes, she is recorded as a second vote against.
okay, great. Thank you very much.
And we have 1 abstention, which is John Pennington, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay, so here's my tally of the counts, and we can verify it against this if it's, yes, we're 53 logins plus 20 second people on the logins for a total of 73. The no's We're 16 on the logins plus 10 more people on the logins, which is a total of 26 noes and 1 abstention. So the yeses carry it.
The motion is passed.
Motion
Thank
is
you very
passed.
much. Now let's go ahead then and lower all the hands, please.
Okay.
And let's continue on with the second motion here that we have.
Moses? Mike Henderson here. I had a quick question about this motion.
About
Just
the second one?
the first motion, sorry.
Oh, the one that we just passed? Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it says we're going to create a good neighbor agreement, but it doesn't say, does it come back to MNA to review this with the neighborhood to share what the agreements are?
Absolutely. It does not specify, good, that's actually a very good question.
Well, and actually, I'm sorry, I forgot something. Are we going to see it before we sign it, or what, however it's memorialized with the city?
Yes. Absolutely. And I think.
So is that a vote as well?
I don't, Frank, where you at? It's a solid question. And I think we haven't determined.
Well, Moses, if I read the motion correctly, motion doesn't say we're going to enter into a good neighbor agreement at all. We're
Correct.
going to participate along with other stakeholders in a process.
Right.
And we will, yeah, absolutely come back to the neighborhood association for approval of any a good neighbor agreement that is created or and any draft, any proposed good neighbor agreement will be reviewed and presented to the general meeting.
Why isn't that in the description? That comment.
That doesn't need to be, because the motion is quite simple. It's just to get us in the right direction, and we can fill in the gaps of.
Okay, so why do we have to fill in the gaps and comments instead of actually just making it specific about, hey, we want to work together as a community and figure out things out, but it's not there.
John, one thing you could do, and I don't know that you can do it now as a point of order, but it might have been what you could have done, and maybe you still can, I don't know, is to propose an amendment to the motion.
Yeah.
To add that language, but we've already approved this motion, and so I think that.
Okay, well then I was just asking
could,
why you were even making the comments then. So it should probably be removed from the record, because it.
Oh, John, no, wait a second. Now, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a point of order that Frank made in regards to the him helping me. Not that Frank made, but that Frank is helping me answer. And we're talking about specifically the question that you had about the work groups and what their but the motion actually says for us to do. So
he was adding some good commentary. I thought it could actually be really good for that motion that just got approved. Maybe some people may have voted differently. Anyway, I don't think it's going to change the conversation.
Comments about how it goes. I look forward to your participation.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about this, and I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Okay, moving on. We need to move on to the second motion. Now, the second motion, and I'll put it up here onto the share that on the screen. Oh, where's that here?
Moses, can I jump in quickly before we move on to second motion? Make one quick comment on first before we move off of it.
Of course.
And I hear people asking questions and kind of having all right, what's next? There's some missing information on this motion. Can we make sure to provide information to people on how to move forward next, like getting connected with the working group? to make sure there's some actionable items for people who want to say more about this good neighbor agreement, to just provide that information on the working group that's being formed and how to get connected. So people know that information is coming. And there is a way for people to continue to be involved. I just want to say that out loud that.
Pardon me for interrupting. No, you're absolutely
No,
right.
you're good.
And yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
And I think the work group is going to be a wonderful place for us to be able to hash a lot of things out. Okay, so the second motion that was made by the board is in direct relation to the first one, and whether or not the first one passed or not. If it did not pass, it wouldn't be germane. But the second one is in regards to the previously approved motion in January 2022 that was requesting that this funding for the village, the Safe Rest Village on the Sierra Armory property be reallocated as a grant to Helping Hands to expand services at the Bybee Lakes Hope Center. Now, I know that the word rescind has created a lot of triggers, and I think that I just want to clarify that it was meant to, it's only technically used as a way for us to be able to reconsider motions that have already passed, not to express an opinion on them. And the hope here is that by reconsidering it, we can either resubmit it as one that is relevant, or not relevant, pardon me, one that is legal, because it makes a difficult, it makes a request that is not legal. And also the fact that Bybee Lake, or pardon me, the Helping Hands group is managing, will be managing potentially the SRV, the Sears Armory situation. So if the board debated to and agreed to that we should put this on and take a vote of it for the members to decide whether we should reconsider it and refine it if choose to. But right now it's not contributing. It's incongruent, pardon me. It's incongruent with our policies, with the mission that we're being asked to do from motion one. So I'd love to hear some discussion on this. Frank, I see you have your hands raised.
I just want to suggest that we offer the party who made the motion initially to sort of have the first comment on it, that's all.
That's actually a very good idea. James, are you there, sir?
Yes, I don't understand why this last motion has any bearing on this if we're just talking about having a good neighbor agreement drafted and we have no idea if the shelter is actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Can you please clarify your comment, because I don't quite understand it at all, Moses?
When we had our board meeting, we felt that the first motion expressed a position for this to work towards a safe the agreements, and the second motion, we felt that because the action being requested was not legal, and then the fact that the Helping Hands group was going to be managing this facility potentially, that it was incongruent with the new motion, the mission of the intention of the first motion.
And what's illegal about it?
The fact that it's requesting funding be reallocated as a grant to a nonprofit.
Well, they give grants to nonprofits all the time.
But not budgeted money.
It just got budgeted today.
I'm not a legal expert, but I just know that it's not legal. I mean, you know,
Where did you get your legal review? I'd like to see it.
Okay. We will share with you the, you know, the board minutes and everything. But
And a lawyer gave you this opinion? Can
No,
you give us the name of the lawyer?
you can vote against it then. And folks can vote against it if there is a concern that it is illegal, that it is legal, and that it is still relevant to what the Multnomah Neighborhood Association has been tasked to do with the first motion. And reconsider it. It does not mean that it has been, it is being reconsidered. And if it needs to be resubmitted as a motion to make sure that it is legal, then I'm game for that. We're just trying to refine it. I mean, this is the same issue like with a third motion, is just making sure that they're congruent with what we're doing and they are taking actions that can be taken that are actionable. Right now, there's nothing we can do to force them to reallocate that money. Does that make, that's.
The motion was a request to have them do it.
And they cannot because it's legal. It's illegal.
What is illegal about it? And what is the lawyer that told you it was illegal?
Who is the lawyer that told you that you could propose it and that it was legal?
Moses, I don't know if I could interject for a minute. I
Of
think
course.
you're misspeaking a little bit in that I don't think it's a question of legality or illegality. It's really a question that the funds, when the funds that were in question had specific direction about how they were to be spent, and the criteria for that spending couldn't be applied to the use we're proposing. I mean, Jim, you may be right to say, well, the motion is suggesting that they either break that requirement, and they may come back and say, no, we can't break that requirement because it's, you know, it's an absolute. But that was our understanding, was that that requirement was an absolute. And I don't know about it being illegal or legal. It just, so that's just for clarification. If that.
Thank you for that, Frank. Apologies. So let's have some more discussion on this. I saw Jeffrey, you were there first in the line.
Yes, hello, Moses. Thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Perfectly.
Hello, Moses. Are you able to hear me?
I am.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. Regarding the issue of legality, I think that the legal course of action is that the motion was properly voted upon in the last month's meeting. And so I think it's a specious, kind of a spurious argument to want to retract or rescind the motion, because the issue of legality is not germane to the original motion. The original motion was a reasonable motion. And, you know, one could argue, is this what the city is proposing is that legal? Regarding if one has actually examined the deed for the Sears Armory when FEMA and the GSA federal government had granted the property to the city made no reference to homelessness in the initial application to be granted the property. And it's dubious legal basis that the city has to actually create an SRV in what is supposed to be an emergency preparedness center. So I think the focus on legality for your second motion is mistaken. And I think that the motion should be voted against by other residents for the reason that it was a valid motion and had been voted on correctly the first time. And if it's not proper use of funds, then that can be determined by a future avenue. But the M&A is not, we're not necessarily legal experts here. And we were following parliamentary rules in debating and voting upon the measure initially last month. Thank you.
Very well put. Thank you. It's, Jane, I see that you have a different colored hand raised. I'm assuming that may be because you have a comment in favor.
No, I was raising the question also about legality that the city is using ARPA funds, the Recovery Act funds to fund the Safe Rest Villages. I mean, I question, is that an allowable use of the funding for that? Because that was supposed to be to, for public health measures, replace lost public sector revenue, provide premium pay for essential workers, and invest in infrastructure. So it's a question of legality also comes across as, are they appropriately using the Recovery Act funds to pay for Safe Rest Villages?
Right on. Thank you for that. Mark Booth. Go ahead and make your comments, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. I guess echoing a lot of this and kind of down into the weeds, I guess the word rescind does sort of trigger. My understanding is that about 7 days after the January vote, that a letter actually went to the city. Is that right? That stated this. So you can't really rescind an action that's already taken place. And so without wanting to lead you in a specific direction, but maybe it seems like this motion ought to be for creating a new letter if there's, this question of the legality is resolved. Maybe it's a new motion rather than a motion to rescind. And the other part of this is just making sure that the board has acted according to the desire of the majority of the folks that voted in the meeting in January.
You raise a really valid point. It seems to me that a friendly amendment could be made to clarify that point that you just made about the funding. How am I want to word this? How did you word that just now, Mark? I apologize.
It was off the top. There's not much left on the top. I think that it might want to be, and I don't know how other folks feel about it, but it might want to be a different motion rather than talking about rescinding. It might be a motion put forth by the board, but it might restate what the intent was. But I think the funding piece needs to be a question. I can't really re-articulate what I said before.
No, I hear exactly what you're saying here, Mark, and I appreciate that thought. Let me move on to two other comments here real quick on this, and then we can do something.
Well, point of procedure, Chair. Could we just see everybody's face here, or could we see the general rather than the motion? Could we see people as they speak?
Oh, that makes sense. I know that some people are shy, and so I want to be respectful, but also you are talking on on the topic, so it makes sense to do that. Okay, so I want to go first to Aurora Moore, and then I'm going to go to Ruth, and then I've got on the, yeah, okay, very good. Oh, John ahead of Ruth, pardon me. But first, Aurora.
Everyone coming in new to this conversation, and so but just wanted to bring a perspective as somebody who's working ARP funds in education for the Oregon Department of Ed. But if that's where these funds are coming from, they have to be spent within a certain amount of time. That's pretty much September 30th, 2024. And so I would say that any requests from associations like ours to reallocate or move those funds, first of all, we probably don't have the power to actually direct anything around the reallocation. And then also just the procurement issues that are happening across our state with these funds are such that if we basically stop this process from happening or say somebody else should get it, we won't be able to liquidate the funds in time to actually have them be useful. So, and also they can be for almost any purpose, including this one. There's pretty wide latitude on how those ARP funds may be spent. So I guess I would be in favor of rescinding this because I think it's silly.
Right on, Aurora. Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, I want to go to John Emschwaller.
Yeah, thanks. Let me just get my face up here.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, so just a question. So when we passed the last motion, we sent a letter to the city stating that this is what we recommended, that the money be reallocated.
That's correct.
So if we pass this motion, we have to send them another letter saying we've changed our mind.
We could send.
Well, if we don't send them another letter.
No, we would send them a letter as a courtesy. I agree with you with that. But then if there was any other action that complemented that motion, we would also do that.
Did the board, when they passed this motion unanimously, have any thoughts about if we do rescind this recommendation, what recommendation we'd send them?
Actually, no. And because we wanted to leave it up for the membership to be able to decide.
Did the board have any recommendations about what might be sent if we're?
Frank, do you want to talk to that at all?
Fine. It was my sense that we did have a recommendation, and that was just simply that that we encourage, not encourage, but that everything except the money part was, we would say the city needs to get on with it and develop the emergency operations center at the site.
That seems to be the third motion, I guess, that deals with the emergency operations center. So I'm a little unclear on what, I mean, if we rescind this motion and don't send a letter.
I apologize. I'm misreading. I thought that's the one we were working on.
I guess we're still on number 2, but it seemed if we don't send a letter, and we rescind this, it's meaningless anyway. And then the question is, what do you say in the letter? That we just changed our mind?
Yeah, exactly. Good question. Good points, John. Very good points. Okay, I do want to go to Ruth and then Will, and then we'll figure out where to go from there. Okay, Ruth, you're up.
Thanks. Yeah, what we've just decided is that we are going to participate in the Good Neighbor Agreement process, right? And so that's how we engage. This previous motion isn't really salient because it doesn't speak to how the funding, it's not a matter whether it's legal or not. It just doesn't even make sense in terms of the public process. So we need, whether we rescind it or amend it or whatever, we can send in this letter, but it doesn't make any difference because it doesn't relate to the reality of the public process and the funding stream. So what I would recommend is that our letter to the city reflects the Good Neighbor Agreement process and that we want to begin that in good faith and make the best of all the discussion that we just had. So same in regards to the emergency center, we need to have the emergency center continue. And of course, the Safe Rest Village would be just a small part of the parking lot. We'll work with them to figure all that out. So I would say let's move on and engage in good faith and make the best of it on all fronts. But this previous motion doesn't make any sense, really, at the moment.
Thank you for your comments, Ruth. All right, one more. Will, I know you have your hand up, so go ahead and then we'll go from there.
Okay, well, briefly, when this motion came up, it was a narrow vote. There was 14 in favor and either 12 or 13 against, depending on some question on the count. But ultimately, I'm on a 1-vote margin. That doesn't mean it's invalid. It was the will of the people, and we worked on. It did raise a whole issue we hadn't discussed, is the validity of Safe Rest Villages at all. Because the money that would have gone to the Safe Rest Village in Multnomah at Sears, if that were voted down, the money would go to a Safe Rest Village somewhere else. So they have 6 Safe Rest Villages. The net of this particular motion said we're going to have 5 Safe Rest Villages and give the money off to another organization, which ironically is run by the same organization that's going to be running, if they get accepted, going to be running this one, this Safe Rest Village. So it's a rather mixed message motion, and doesn't really accomplish what I think it wanted to do, which is to discourage people from having a Safe Rest Village in Multnomah, and it opens a whole nother can of worms. So I would think we would probably want to leave that one alone for the moment. We can leave it if we want or not, but I don't think this original motion was as well thought out as the others have been, and I'm not sure it would accomplish what I think it was intended to do, which is to keep the SRV out of Multnomah.
Okay, thank you. All right, I just looked down at the clock and I just realized it's 9 o'clock. I do need to, can someone raise a hand? Can someone ask to extend the meeting for another period of time, 15, 30 minutes while we go through this? I'd like to propose that we do that rather than anybody. So I'm going ahead and extend the meeting for another until 9:30. It's 9:02 right now. That should give us enough time to get through the rest of this. All right, so there's no more discussion. I'd like to put this out for a vote. We are familiar with how the voting process is because of the last one. We're going to go do the fors. We're going to do the againsts and the abstains. And we're going to do the fors. We're going to do 2 rounds. First round is the first vote of, is everybody's singular vote. The second round will be the, not the second round, but the second go around will be the M2s for that household. And we'll do that for the fors, the against, and the abstains. So raising our, in relation to the motion on the floor, due to the reading the motion, due to the recent information from the City of Portland and other stakeholders regarding the Sears Armory Safe Rest Village project, the Multnomah Neighborhood Association Board moves to rescind a previously adopted motion from the January 22nd general meeting requesting the funding for the proposed Safe Rest Village on the Sears Armory property be reallocated as a grant to Helping Hands to expand services at the Bybee Lakes Hope Center. All those in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. Only if you are in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Motions, I just want to make sure I'm answering it correctly. We're talking about rescinding the funding, correct? For something I think the gentleman just said we voted for. Is that correct? I want to make sure I'm voting the right way.
We're rescinding in the sense, in the term that we're rescinding a previously adopted motion that had been from the January 22nd meeting, that requested that the funding for the village at the Sears Armory be reallocated as a grant to Helping Hands to expand services at the Bybee Lake Hope Center.
Okay.
That's what we're voting on, whether to rescind that so that we can be then yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's have a vote. I'm sorry,
Moses. And so in practical terms, what this means is you're going to send a letter back to the city that basically says, never mind. Is that it?
I
didn't mean to oversimplify.
Personally, I don't think that letter is necessary. It's kind of an internal.
So this is just for us.
Basically, so that it can be yes, exactly.
Okay.
This is not going to be, we're not sending a letter to the city.
Moses, may I say something on that?
Sure,
will. Sure, just very, very briefly. We had a vote of the people back in January to give the money to Bybee Lakes. This is another vote of the people reversing that decision. This isn't the board vote. The board brought it up for consideration, but what this body does, this is the vote of the people at this meeting tonight who can say, keep it going or take it back. And if you vote to rescind, you're saying, no, we do not want to give the money to Bybee Lakes, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, so once again, if you're voting in favor of this motion, I need you to raise your hand, please. Or if you cannot raise your hand to say something to Will as we count the votes. And what we are doing now is we're doing the first round. We'll do the M2s here in a moment. And we're giving it 10-second countdown. 10 for all those in favor. 9, 8, 7.
Oh, Beth here.
Beth?
I'm voting.
Thank you.
And one last comment, just so other
5.
persons.
We're right in the middle of a vote, sir. You cannot interrupt. Thank you. 5.
Well,
We
what's
are
the
right in-
countdown for?
We are right in the middle of a vote. That's a very, please. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Will, go ahead and take a count. And when you're ready, we can do the second part of that, Will. Will, are you with me? Where did Will go? Hang in there with me, folks, here. I show,
Willie's counting.
oh, is he? Okay. Oh, thank you. Whoever said that.
Will, you are muted. You're talking, but you're muted.
I am counting I counted the initial 31 votes in favor of the motion. That's the first person. So now I'm going to lower the hands. And the second person in the ones that were M2s, that is voting in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Well, this is Beth. Did you include my vote?
Sure thing. You can do a *6 if you want, but I'll just make sure you're there if you want.
If I hit *6, I get muted again.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's *9. My apologies. The vote is *9, but I'll put you in there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Once again,
Thanks.
we're doing the
Thanks.
M2 vote here, and we got you down, Beth.
A *9
Okay,
is a
great.
*6 upside down, so I get a little confused on that. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
No
I'm
problem.
absentee, by the way, just again, so just to let you know. So
Point of information or point
Abstain.
of order. Am I correct that for a second vote to be counted, we need to see 2 live faces on a window, on the Zoom window?
Or at least the second person after the first person. I see Aurora. I see ya. Thank you for clarifying. Okay, so Will is doing his thing. I appreciate everybody doing all this. All right, Will. There we go. I show you as raising your hand, Beth.
Yeah, no, that was a mistake.
Okay, I'll go ahead and lower it here.
Sorry.
Sure thing, sure thing. Okay, how are we doing, Will? Maybe I'm
He's
Oh,
muted.
you're muted again.
I see nobody who's voting no.
Wait a second, Will, I think you're a little behind here. Did we
The
get?
no votes haven't been asked for.
Right,
I'm
exactly.
sorry.
That's right.
I was muted when I asked for it. You're right. I'm sorry, I was muted. It is now time to vote for people who are voting no for this motion.
Very good, very good. So if you're voting against this motion, please vote now. This will be the first round, and then we'll catch up the second person in your household. So this is for against this motion.
All right.
Okay.
Anybody else? I count 13.
I
votes.
abstain if we can capture that for the record.
That'll come to abstaining. Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect.
Get that going.
Thank you very much.
You've got that count then, Will? So can we?
I have not got the count yet. Hold on.
Okay, so we're
Asking
still on
question
the
about
first
abstention.
round of those against.
First of
Yes,
no.
sir.
I count 12 at this point, no votes for the first round.
Okay, very good. Now we're doing the second round of the no votes here.
Yep, but not quite yet. Let me record it.
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the countdown. Will you make sure to count my vote?
Oh, you got it, Kylie. Make sure. I'll make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still in the first round. We haven't done the second round yet of those against, voting against.
Really isn't. Okay, we're going to do I'm going to lower the hands. Okay, second round, no, but people voting no on this motion.
And this is the second person in your household vote.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Boy, I wish Fat City was open right now. I haven't been to Fat City Cafe forever.
Okay, I have it recorded. I have recorded the vote. I have 8 who said second round.
And we have, of course, we have the one abstention.
One abstention. Somebody has voted it went away. Okay. Any further votes?
No, we just need the totals.
Okay, I have, let me count the first round here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 on the first round and 8 on the second round, that makes 20. And on the first round, I got the second part. Hold on.
So close.
My apologies, folks. It looks like I came down. I'm going to have to count these by hand.
There was an abstention. Was that counted?
Yeah, that abstention is 2 persons. If we're close, I may change my vote.
Oh my goodness sake. Are you doing this just to heighten the tension, Will? Come on.
No, I doubled up the first part of the votes. My apologies.
I'm just teasing a little bit here.
Okay. I have a count of 31 plus 9, but I'm not sure that 31. I'm sorry. It's more than that, but I double logged the first vote. Does anyone record the first vote number?
I had 31 for the first with the
31.
N1s.
That's what I have on. Okay, and then 1 abstention or 2 abstentions. Okay, so 31 on the first round plus 9 is 39. The noes were 12 on the first round plus 8 on the second for 20. and 2 abstentions. So 39-20, the motion carries.
Very good. All right, let's move on to the next one. Thank you very much, folks.
Just for the record, I think 31 plus 9 is 40.
Thank you.
31 plus 9 is 40. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. It's down south, it's 39, but we'll live with it. Okay.
Okay, final motion of the night here. Motion number 3. Now this one, folks, we need to, give me a second. Okay. Okay. Just like with the last one that we had, because of the money restrictions, the funding restrictions, it's impossible for this to occur because of the grants and such. But the concept here should be, in my opinion, saved in the sense of a statement of the neighborhood supports the purposing of the Armory towards the original goal of it being the West Side Emergency Response Center. I think the thought process of the board was that if this was clean without the funding request, the funding demand, it would be very appropriate and it'd be a correct expression of our intention behind that. So I do want to bring up Bobby and Karen, are you on the call still by chance? I can't see.
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
It takes a while to get that mute off.
Okay,
Yes.
good. I'm so happy you're here. I want, once again, we need to let you speak to this.
Okay.
And share your thoughts.
Right. Well, the reason why we still haven't had the Sears Emergency Preparedness Center implemented was because there was no funding. So that was the idea behind putting funding to, to secure the funding, you secure the emergency center. You don't have the funding, according to the city of Portland, you don't have the emergency center. So you need to put the two together. To separate them is all but saying we don't support emergency center because the city has already said we don't have the funding for it. And this funding is not illegal. There's nothing illegal about requesting this funding. It was to go around to whatever emergency preparedness necessitated it. And this would. So there's nothing that could even be construed as illegal about this request. I think that the city can just kind of sort that out. But we need to, it's up to, of course, the city to allocate it towards that. But we're, as a neighborhood association, saying that we think that the funding should go here. And so that we have an emergency center for the West Side. Otherwise, we don't have one. And so, and I also want to point out, I think that there's a lot of people that think that the SRV is connected to this particular request, because there were a lot of people that had originally voted against this emergency center motion that I put forth in a very passionate way against it. And I think that they were tying in the SRV with this as saying that, no, we support the SRV and therefore we don't support this. There is no language that ties the SRV with this particular motion. So if you are pro or are against the SRV, it's irrelevant because it is a motion that is saying that we support the emergency center going being fully implemented as it was supposed to have been. And that is, as I originally said, it's, without it, it could potentially render the city incapable of assisting hundreds, thousands of people in a disaster. And especially hard hit would be areas in Portland that are high equity. And affect people who potentially could become homeless and in harm's way after a disaster. So it's bizarre that somebody would vote against that in the original motion. Everybody has their own opinions, but it's bizarre not to want that and to want people to be rescued in case of a disaster. If SRV goes in place, then the city needs to figure out how they're going to have both fully implemented. But this is foremostly an emergency center. And so that needs to come first, and the other the city can figure that out. If they can do both of them at the same time effectively, that's what they're supposed to be figuring out. But
and the commissioner also mentioned that they're going to keep this as an emergency center.
So we need to fund it.
Yeah. And this would be a great way to continue funding it. It's a request. It's not a demand or anything. It's a request that those funds that the state and the federal government have given over, that the city voted on to receive, and we're matching, those funds we're wanting them to come and protect the west side.
Yeah.
Because right now it's not being protected. It hadn't been protected ever since we gained the property.
Yeah. And so those funds were newly voted on in the December 8th meeting. And so we had lots of opportunity to go in and say, what are you going to do with those funds? Let's channel them. Let's possibly look into channeling them. Some of them, I didn't say all of them. I said, the funds, it didn't mean the entire group, but channeling them over into the emergency center so it can be implemented. That's exactly what it should have been done decades ago, but the city, but the city council didn't do due diligence, and here we have no emergency center all these years later. So there you have it.
Thank you, Karen. Kevin has his hand up. Kevin, go ahead. Kevin Davis.
I actually don't know why my hand is up. I think I was just waving. I was just waving at you, Moses. So I'll get it down. Thank you.
Hey, Kevin, I thought you were going to give us some legal insight. Darn it. I do. Frank, do you want to, or Will, would you like to make a comment on this as far as the board's perspective?
I have no idea.
Because you voted.
I can make a comment if you'd like. This is Will.
Okay, and then, yeah.
Just very briefly, this was one where the sentiment of the board, and this really is a sentiment for the board trying to reflect the sentiment of the people here. So this is not our voice. This is trying to bring it up for the people to give us another opinion. So I'll be very clear on that. What we thought was, there's a fair amount of support in the building, in the Multnomah neighborhood, for the Emergency Resource Center. It was what the place was designed for. It's something we very much need. We want to have it happen. Tying it to these specific two ordinances was a problem because the money from those ordinances is designated for some very specific actions, which are not necessarily tied to Sears Center. So to tie that money to the Sears Center may in fact would be in violation of the grants that raise the money. And it would certainly complicate life for making those actions take place and broadly citywide. So what we proposed was really bring this up for a review, put up another motion in substituting, say we support the Emergency Resource Center. And not only that, we would probably want to put a work group together to make that happen, similar to the SRV work group. So that's what we're trying to do here. So I would say if we vote this one down, we can have a substitute motion that says we support the ERC and want to make it happen.
Thank you, Will. Thank you very much. All right, let's go first just to Charmaine and then to Pat and Carrie.
I have a question. Would it be appropriate then to move to amend this to reword it so that we are requesting that the city fund the emergency response center and remove reference to those particular ordinances?
I think a friendly yes. Yes, I think we would have to still vote this one down and then present another motion. Or we could say, we could take maybe a friendly amendment on this.
To be a good citizen here.
Actually, yes, we could. Okay, so I'm hearing that we could do it. Is Tad Davis still on this, on the call? Tad, are you still there with me?
I am, yes.
Tad, okay, so with this motion, would it be appropriate to have a friendly amendment to this motion, doing what is being suggested, eliminating it, reclarifying it, and we could just vote on it? So in other words, this motion to rescind is also a motion to reword it?
No, a motion to rescind is not amendable. It's rescind or not. No, it can't be anything more than that.
Okay, so we'd have to have two separate actions. Okay,
Yes.
very good. Thank you. Okay. Pat, go ahead, please. Thank you, Charmaine.
Yeah, thanks. Can I clarify? So Robert and Karen, you're against the motion as it stands? I wasn't, I think that's what I got from your comments.
Right. And there's
Yes,
the motion.
yes, I'm sorry, I was gonna answer that. Yeah, I'm against rescinding it because I wrote the original motion and did you want me to read the original motion or?
No. I just wanted to make the
Okay.
clarification and also just comment, both of these measures, these motions to rescind are troubling to me. They strike me as somewhat anti-democratic and a little revisionist and a little bit too reactive. And I think we should either be more careful about the motions that we pass or let them stand. And, the board and the neighborhood association is supposed to take hard and firm and sometimes unpopular positions, sometimes unpopular with the city and the county. And so if these passed, I voted against the last motion. I'm going to vote against this one for those reasons. I think this is a process issue for me. I'm in favor of the sentiments, but I'm also a little very worried about the process in terms of rescinding or going back on something that was just passed last month or in December. I mean, it's either it was the will at the time and we let it go, or we should be more careful about passing things that are going to be, under scrutiny and then tossed out a month later. It seems poor. It seems like poor management to me, with all due respect to the individuals involved.
Right on, Pat. Good comment. All right, Frank, go ahead.
I'd like to move to table this motion, and that circumcedes, that anyway. And there's no discussion to be had about that. But my rationale for tabling it is that, frankly, the reason that the board, or at least the reason that I consented to allow this motion to rescind this motion to go forward is that it was presented to us at the board that these funds could not be allocated for this purpose. And now I don't know if that's true. And I need someone to provide real information about whether or not these funds actually can be allocated for this purpose or not before I want to vote on whether to rescind the previous motion or not. So I would like to table this, and it is 9:31 at this point, so that's the other reason to table it.
Okay, very good. I agree. I think that's a good, and if I understand, Tad, are you with me again? Let's understand how this would work. Let's make sure that the tabling, the motion to table is handled correctly here. Frank has made it, so it's being considered.
Okay, is there a second?
Is there a second for the motion to Frank's motion to table this
Do you
motion?
need a second for a motion to table?
I second the motion.
Okay, well, just in case, we do have a second. Okay. All right, so we're going to do a vote now on the motion to table, motion number 3, to confirm, to table number 3. Okay, so Will, I need your help here.
Okay.
Okay,
what
so
we're doing
we're
is
gonna-
we're doing the
last-
same process as before. We have a vote for the windows, essentially the logins of yes to table, and a second round for second people in the window to say yes. Then we have a round of the people in the windows say no, and the second person is in the window to say no, and then finally abstentions.
Very
That's clear, and it's the same process. Raise your hand to vote in favor of this particular part of the thing. So the first round is every login person who's in favor of tabling this motion, raise your hand. Okay, we got everybody. I count 26 at this point. 27, 28. You want to count down?
And once again, this is you're voting on whether that to be in favor of tabling motion number 3. And this is the first round. So if you're raising your hand, you're raising it in favor of tabling the motion. We're going to do a second round here in just a second to make sure that we get the second person in the household. And vote 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, I counted 30 hands. I'm going to capture the screen capture so that we've got the tally. The count of 30 is the valid sort of a thing. The screen capture is a double check. So bear with me. Okay.
Okay, so we're doing the second round of
No,
this.
we're doing the first. We're still doing the first round. I'm tallying it.
Oh, pardon me, pardon me. Everybody here that's still on this vote, on this call, you're troopers. Thank you. One of these days. we'll have
Okay, I am done with the first round. I'm going to lower the hands. And now, second people in the M2s. If you're in favor of it, raise your hands.
Once again, this is the second person voting in approval. Yeah, we're almost done, folks. Hang in there with me.
I see 15.
5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Okay. Anybody who's voting in favor of tabling that was not able to raise your hands, please speak now or forever hold your peace.
Okay.
All right. I have 30
Actually, I'd like to abstain again. I'm sorry.
Sure,
for
what
the third one.
abstain? That's where we get to abstentions. We haven't got there yet. We haven't got the, we gotta get the no
Okay.
votes.
I apologize for that.
That's no problem.
Thanks for your patience.
Bear with it.
All right, so now we're gonna lower the hands.
I'm first
If
gonna
you-
tally. I gotta tally it. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm just excited. I have this fantasy of dinner.
Dinner. What's this?
Dinner. All right, folks.
That city's closed.
Ah,
Oh dear.
Renders is open.
you know, that's not
Okay,
bad.
I've tallied. I'm lowering hands. Okay, everyone who's voting against tabling, please raise your hand. This is against tabling.
This meeting's run over.
That's right.
We're almost over. Okay, once again, this is in voting against the motion to table.
I have 2 people showed up.
5, 4, 3.
I'm against it.
Okay, thank you, Beth.
Yes, that's 3, okay.
Okay.
And
Out of 5, okay, now this is the first round of those against it, and
let me tally quick. Let me tally it real quickly there. Okay, tallied.
okay, very
And-
good. And now the second round is Kathleen.
The second round was done. That's it.
Okay, and then we have the one, any abstentions? We have the
One
one.
abstention.
Okay,
Yeah.
very
I abstain again.
wonderful. Okay, go, let's hear the totals. Will?
Well, I have 3 and 1 on this, 1 in the second round, so that comes down to 4, not to table, and 1 abstention. So I
What
have
was
45 yes, 30 on the first round, 15 on the second round, 4 no, and 1 abstention.
Okay, very good, very good. All right, so the motion to table is passed. We are going to table this, the vote on this motion. And I expect that at our next meeting, if not earlier, we're going to have we'll work on any other kind of a motion that might help support any revisions that are decided upon. And I'll work with you, Karen and Robin, and Rob, to make sure intention is strong.
Right?
Okay. Folks, it is 9:39. I know that everybody wants to get off of this call, and I have to agree with you. So I know that we have other items. You know, we were going to have a discussion about the work groups and a discussion about Safe Rest Village. Obviously, we need to continue this conversation, and I also want to talk more about the work groups a little, but it can wait. And so I would entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there a second? Anybody want to second that one?
Second.
No. Okay. All right, folks, we will be discussing this. We'll stay in touch. I appreciate everybody's patience tonight. And thanks. You'll be hearing from us, and have a good evening, everyone.
Don't we need to vote on adjourning? We have a.
Oh, God. I just, please vote. Give me a raised hand, or give me a hand up if you want us to adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourning.
Okay.
Before we leave the meeting, Moses and Ted, be sure to save your chat records.
Yep, you got it. You got it. Okay, folks, what wonderful evening. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Take care. Recording is stopping.